In prison for 12 long years. Crime Think Tank family, this is a case about Mr. Duane Williams out of Detroit, Michigan. His case was established based on a false testimony, a false statement from someone that he knew in the city that he lived in. And it is such a disturbing case, but it does have a relative, joyous ending to it with a few caveats that are left on the end. Yet, understand this kind of case can happen to any one of us. And you would think that it's not happening in this day and time with a lot of the technology that we have, DNA, GPS technology. You would think that this kind of thing is not happening, yet it still is. And there are many cases that are being currently investigated because of wrongful convictions. And we're going to talk about it today. So stay tuned. On August the 20th, 2012, our subject today, Mr. Duane Williams, he was called by his sister, who was frantic, and she was just highly, highly upset. And so she called him to tell him that his mother, Janet Smith's long-term boyfriend, Mr. Bobby Cross, and his son, Mr. Daryl Sims, had been killed in a house fire that Janet, Bobby, and Daryl lived in. And so Mr. Williams was just taken aback. He was like, he thought that, this couldn't be a true story. He thought that, wow, this was a made up story. But in fact, it was actually true. And so the story goes that Mr. Duane Williams, he had actually had a heated verbal exchange with Mr. Bobby Cross the night before, which again was his mother, Miss Janet Smith's long-term boyfriend. And it was stated that Mr. Cross pulled a gun on Mr. Duane Williams, and he told him to get out of his house. And so Mr. Williams immediately said, that he left. They were both actually intoxicated when this, event occurred. And so when the police arrived, not only did Duane Williams' mother, Mrs. Janet Smith, say that she thought that it was a possibility that her son, Mr. Williams, actually set the fire. And there was a corroboration with that along with neighbors. And it's important to mention that these neighbors, they were also relatives of Mrs. Smith as well. So after this investigation went forth, the detective that was responsible for, doing an investigation on the house fire determined that it was unfounded, that they really couldn't determine what occurred. And so it went to the medical examiner's office as well. And once they, reviewed the fire and reviewed the reports, they determined that the fire was due by accident, as well as the Mr. Cross and Mr. Sims, they died of smoke and inhalation. So we're going to actually look at the video here, because you would think that because the investigators as well as the medical examiner determined that this was not a homicide, that the fire was not arson, that everything was copacetic. This is not true. And here we're going to hear where it begins, the horror, the nightmare of 12 years in prison off of a false statement. And we're just going to watch about 7 minutes of this video. So once it's finished, I want you all to get in the comments, like, comment, subscribe, share. Give me your speculative investigative thoughts about, what you feel about not just being accused falsely, but also what about the legal system, and what about the investigators, and how they view certain cases. And after you're on the job for a while, should you lose your zeal? Should you lose your desire for justice? Because we're going to see this unfold when you hear the rest of this story. Sometimes officers can get in positions and they've been in them for so long that they're just trying to really do their 20 or their 30, and they're trying to get out. And that is absolutely abhorrent. It's absurd. It's not right. I absolutely do not agree with that, because everyone deserves justice. But thank the Lord for a conviction integrity unit that you're going to hear about in this video. So remember, Crime Think Tank family, share this video so that we can get into a discussion about every aspect from the beginning to the end of this. So let's watch.
Duane Williams never thought he'd spend the rest of his life behind bars, but for nearly 12 years, that's exactly where he found himself, falsely accused of a horrific crime he didn't commit. This is the story of a man who fought against a flawed system, a case full of lies, and a fatal fire that changed everything. His only hope? That someone, someday, would listen.
I didn't want to spend the rest of my life like that. Prison is like hell. It's like hell with no escape.
Duane Williams refused to be shackled by a system designed to keep him down. On August 20th, 2012, Williams received a call from his sister. His mother's live-in boyfriend, 67-year-old Bobby Cross, and his stepson, 42-year-old Daryl Sims, were dead, victims of a mysterious house fire.
I don't believe her, but I'm kind of thinking, like, why would he play like this?
Williams and Cross never got along. The night of the fire, Williams said they argued, and Cross pulled a shotgun, threatening to kill him if he didn't leave. So he did, to a friend's house downriver.
Their family was telling the police that I did it, and the police was looking for me.
Because neighbors related to the victims told police about the heated, alcohol-fueled argument. Witness statements also showed Janet Smith, Williams' mother, even voiced fears that her son could be responsible. But investigators did not suspect arson. Detroit Fire Lieutenant Patrick McNulty found no evidence of accelerants, foul play, or smoking materials, according to his report, where he listed the cause undetermined. The Wayne County Medical Examiner ruled the deaths accidental, caused by smoke inhalation. So why was Williams arrested for arson and murder 7 months later?
I was shocked, really. I didn't know, because I thought that was over with.
So how did they come to the conclusion? Did they have any evidence against you?
No.
Just this guy's word.
This is crazy.
This guy, Gary Jennings, who had recently been pulled over while on probation, arrested for selling DVDs, smoking pot, and driving without a license. He came up with a story that would change everything. Jennings claimed Williams had confessed to him that he set the fire on Fielding Street.
This guy didn't know a single detail, and they basically went with him saying that I told him I did it, and that was it.
Records reveal Jennings told Sergeant Michael Russell that during a phone call, Williams confessed to starting the fire over rent money. Police and prosecutors seized on Jennings' account, building their case without verifying the phone records. There was no physical evidence, only the victim's family and friends pointing the finger at Williams, persuading the medical examiner to change the cause of death from accidental to homicide. Authorities soon had Williams on trial for murder and arson.
Yeah, I was angry because I couldn't believe that people were getting on the stand and saying what they were saying, and it was nothing I could do about it.
Because he claims his court-appointed attorney failed to defend him, ignoring his phone calls and never let him take the stand to defend himself. A jury convicted Williams, sentencing him to life in prison.
I told myself that I could live with me keeping myself in prison, but I couldn't live with somebody else keeping me in prison.
In prison, Williams got to work with the defiant will of an innocent man. He spent years in the law library, writing letters and filing requests, determined to prove he wasn't a cold-blooded killer.
I wrote so many letters, I think the blisters on my hands going away now.
Duane's persistence paid off. In 2018, his FOIA request led to a stunning revelation: an original fire report that had been altered.
What I was asking for was the police file. Well, what they sent me was a fire report.
Look at the original Detroit fire report and compare it to this one from the prosecution. The original report mentions a Zippo-style lighter found near the couch, right where the fire started.
I noticed that it says something about a lighter in it, and a lighter in the area of origin of the fire. Well, the fire investigator testified there was nothing there.
Lieutenant McNulty never mentioned any smoking materials in his final fire report or when he testified for the prosecution. In 2021, Duane's battle for justice intensified when he convinced the state's appellate defender office to represent him. And Wayne County's Conviction Integrity Unit started reviewing his case, prosecuted by Louisa Populus.
I remember reading his letter, and there's no way that this actually happened. Like, I've seen a lot of bad things, but that's a whole nother level of prosecutorial misconduct.
Prosecutorial misconduct.
Diamond, who you saw there, founded Firefly Advocates, and it's that key organization in this that provided Williams with the legal assistance he needed. More from him when we come back. Plus, the disturbing pieces of evidence Duane Williams and his defense never knew about, what it finally took to free him, and whether anyone has been held accountable for layers of violations and injustice.
We're going to
Duane
stop
Williams
it right
endured
there.
12 grueling years in prison.
So there you have it, Crime Think Tank family, that the report was altered. He ended up requesting public information from the police department, and he was ended up being sent a fire report, which actually showed information that was not testified to. And once you look at the entire video, you'll go ahead and see where this actually ended up. He did end up getting a release, and the prosecution, they're determining whether or not that they're going to bring future charges against him. But I really don't think that that's going to happen. It's amazing though how these things occur, but I really want to also point out that Mr. Williams, he is not bitter, because oftentimes when these things occur, people end up coming out of prison bitter and angry and resentful and mad. But he is so grateful and thankful for even getting the opportunity that he never would have had previously. It caused the trajectory of his life to shift, which in a sense is a blessing. So again, get in the comments. Thank you for watching. Take care. Shalom.